Hello, welcome to another exciting edition of the Charles Report, coming to you directly from Ormond Beach, Florida, the sunshine capital of the world, where the sun is actually out today. Today is Wednesday, the 30th of September, 2014, and I've got a number of interesting points in the news for us to meditate upon today and think about. Um, Number one, I was reading on the World Socialist website where this year's election is predicted to have the lowest turnout in all of U.S. history. Now, this is a federal election, but the presidency is not on the ballot. It's Senate, Congress, and governorships, and they're predicting less than 5%. I think that what has become increasingly obvious is that we, the people, feel we have no stake at all in these rituals, and they're just performed for the benefit of the ruling class and its elected power structure. Corporate money buys these candidates, finances their campaigns. There is no public financing of political campaigns in the United States the way there is in Europe, for instance. In Germany, if a candidate or a party, rather, party draws more than 5% of the electorate in any kind of an election, either local or national, they're entitled to public financing for all their future campaigns. So that's something that we have to bring to. That is the only thing that's going to bring real, true democracy back again to this process that has been so corrupted by big money and corporate power, banking, finance capital, essentially. Um, but what is happening is that this election may be a watershed event in U.S. history, and that for the first time there's an organized national boycott of this ritual, and it's being organized by the Elections Boycott Organizing Alliance, and you can find their Facebook page on Facebook. That's the Elections Boycott Organizing Alliance. And as a member of that alliance, we're hoping to be able to buy a full page advertisement in the New York Times where we can list the elections boycott manifesto, so people will get a better idea as to what this is all about and what their stake in it is, and that they have a positive reason this time for not voting. And we're hoping to articulate the position of the non-voting public. As I said, it seems we have less and less, regardless of what candidates are selected by the power structure to run in these races, election races. Nothing changes. The ruling class and the power structure does whatever they want to do, and I think we're seeing this with Obama. He's a guy who was elected on the basis of change, and the mantra of change that we always get, and ending an anti-war, supposedly an anti-war candidate who has bombed, attacked 7 countries since he's been in office, and these are all acts of violations of international law, the same laws that convicted the Nazis at the end of World War II. This is what Mr. Obama has tried to do in our name, and we want to say not in our name. This is in the name of the ruling class and the power structure. We want no part of it. So I urge you to support the elections boycott, and if you're interested, go to the Facebook page, and you can get some more information on that. Next thing, okay, there was an interesting article in The Intercept. The Intercept is a online journal started by Glenn Greenwald. It's very well done, and there's a story there called "The Fake Terror Threat Used to Justify Bombing Syria" by Glenn Greenwald and Mortaza Hussain. And this story details how how the media has once again facilitated another lie in the same venue as what happened with Iraq. Remember the phony weapons of mass destruction that were used in order to carry out a war of aggression. in violation of international law against Iraq. Now, we're seeing it once again with Syria. Syria is the new target, and they want to use ISIS as a dual-purpose entity. It can be useful, in attempting to overthrow Assad and contain Iran, and then it can also be useful as a way of justifying an enormous expansion of that war by the U.S. and its the Gulf potentates to overthrow the secular government in Syria. So I urge you to read this story. It's on The Intercept, and once again, the title of it is "The Fake Terror Threat Used to Justify Bombing Syria." And it's a very interesting story, and I'm not going to go into the details of it right now, just to suggest that you'll learn a lot about by the major media facilitates, basically has become a conduit for war propaganda, and it is really unconscionable. It's really not right, and we the people need to step up and say that these horrible actions, these wars of aggression, are not being carried out in our name. No, we've had enough of that. These illegal actions are being carried out to further the interest of the financial aristocracy that offshores most of its money, $38 trillion in offshore accounts. They don't even pay taxes, and they don't even live here anymore. They've got homes all over the world. So they have hijacked the United States government and used the national security state to spy on us, and we are the new enemy to these international brigands that have hijacked the U.S. government, and these illegal wars of aggression are not being carried out in our name, and we say no more of it. So enough of that, and moving on to another interesting subject, 2 points that I've written about on my blog with Salon Magazine, and that's you can find that on open.salon.com /blogs/Charles _ Canals, KNAUSE, and the first point of interest, I would talk about the unfortunate beheading of my fellow UCF alumnus Stephen Sotlov, and the fact that the site intelligence group located at 4938 Hampton Lane, Suite 156, Bethesda, Maryland, 20814, released the tape of that brutal act to the mass media, the mainstream media, CNN, NBC, etc. That pay site. They released the brutal beheading video before ISIS did. Now that's a curious fact. How's that possible that they would be able to do something like that? And wouldn't that be something that the war propagandists would and war facilitators would want to take a look at? No, they're not interested in that, because that does not support the narrative. That destroys the narrative. And I urge you to go to my blog and read that, because it's news you're not going to find anywhere else. And unfortunately, the lives of these reporters in Syria that were taken hostage were used as a convenient justification for ramping up U.S. military involvement in Syria. And I would also say the interesting thing is that Stephen Sotlov was sold by the so-called moderates, the Free Syrian Army, to ISIS. These are the so-called good rebels, or the moderates, and they sold this young man to ISIS for I believe it was $50,000 or somewhere in that amount, and it's really interesting in the way that the mass media, the war propagandists, completely avoid the inconvenient fact that somebody screwed up and from site intelligence group and releasing this video before ISIS did. So I guess that's an embarrassment, but from the standpoint of the power structure, they made sure that it all worked out okay. It's the only news that they consider fit the print. So you're not going to hear about that. Another interesting fact that you're not going to hear too much about is the story that I wrote on my blog related to the tragedy of Malaysian Airlines and the disappearance of Malaysian Flight 37, and then the tragedy of 317. Well, it's an interesting fact that most people don't know about. Excuse me, that was Malaysian MH370 and MH17, and a curious thing happened in 2012 and 2013 in Malaysia. They set up it's called the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, and it was set up in Kuala Lumpur by Malaysia and a group of what we used to call third world nations, as a way of holding the developed world, the Western world, to the same high standards that they hold the developing world to. And they're willing to, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, is willing to bring Charles Taylor to account from Liberia and hold him to account, and Milosevic and the misleaders in Serbia responsible for a terrible genocide there, and they should be held to account. But they don't want to hold themselves to the same standards. So the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal in 2013 indicted all the top Bush officials and for war crimes and crimes against humanity, as well as the top Israeli leadership for the massacre in Gaza, the usual mowing of the lawn, as they say there, the bombing of Gaza, it's an inconvenient fact, I guess, or just a nothing but a coincidence that suddenly Malaysian Airlines begins experiencing these tragedies as a way of payback. Oh, I guess not. I don't know. Well, what do you think? So that's been something you won't be reading about in the news. And if you're interested, go to my blog and you can read more about that. So once again, we've got some interesting things to think about here, and I don't want to burden your mind too much. I want you to have a happy day and to think positive thoughts. And thank you for letting me spend some time with you. So I'll hopefully see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.